In the heart of the ancient wilderness, long before cities, before kingdoms, before history itself, the world was ruled not by man, but by nature. Towering forests stretched endlessly, rivers carved deep scars into the land, and predators stalked silently beneath the shadows of giant trees. Here, survival was not a choice. It was a battle. And among the countless creatures struggling to endure, lived our earliest ancestors. They were not yet human as we know today. Their bodies were strong, covered with hair, their movements swift and cautious, their eyes always watching the dark. They lived more like animals than people, but deep inside, something was awakening. Narration, the struggle. Life for these ancient beings was a constant test. Every dawn was uncertain, every night a descent into terror. When the sun dipped below the horizon, the jungle came alive with sounds of hunters. The roar of great cats echoed in the distance. The howl of strange beasts filled the night. For these fragile creatures, darkness meant danger. They huddled together, clinging to one another, hoping that morning would come again. Food was never guaranteed. They scavenged fruits, roots, and insects. Sometimes, they dared to steal the remains left behind by predators. But every bite carried risk: a venomous plant, a hidden predator, or another rival group waiting to strike. Hunger was their greatest enemy, yet fear was their constant companion. Narration, fragile but different. Compared to the predators that ruled the land, these ancestors were weak. They lacked claws to tear flesh. They lacked teeth sharp enough to bring down prey. They could not outrun the great beasts. And yet, they were different. Within their minds sparked something unseen in the natural world: curiosity, awareness, a glimmer of thought that separated them from the animals around them. When others saw only darkness, they wondered. When others fled, they began to learn. This difference, fragile as it was, would one day change the world forever. Alone, they were vulnerable, but together they discovered strength. In small groups, they learned to protect one another. When danger approached, the weak hid behind the strong. When food was scarce, they shared what little they found. A mother's cry for her child stirred others to defend. A leader's warning call echoed through the trees, and the group followed. This was the birth of something greater than survival, the beginning of community. Still, the jungle was merciless. A rustle in the grass could mean death. A shadow in the trees could mean the end. At night, they clung to the branches, away from prowling beasts. But no height was safe. Serpents coiled upward. Raptors leaped from below. Even in the safety of numbers, terror was never far away. They watched lightning crack across the sky. They heard thunder shake the earth. They trembled, but they remembered. Each day of struggle was etched into their minds. Each moment of survival was a lesson. And slowly, very slowly, the whispers of knowledge began to form. One day, in a clearing after a storm, they saw something new. A fallen tree still smoked from a lightning strike. Around it, a strange glow danced, bright, alive, untouchable. The creatures did not understand it, but they felt it. Heat on their faces, light in the darkness, power beyond anything they had known. Some fled in fear. Others stayed, watching, wondering. The first whispers of a discovery that would change their destiny had arrived. But they were not ready. Not yet. For now, they returned to the shadows of the jungle. Still struggling, still surviving, yet forever changed by what they had seen. Closing narration, setting the stage. This was the dawn of survival, a world where fear ruled, where hunger consumed, where death was always near. But in the hearts of these fragile creatures, something was stirring. Something no beast possessed. A spark of thought. A whisper of courage. The beginning of what it meant to be human. Generations of the ancient wilderness, it was their greatest long enemy. Before cities, before kingdoms sank behind the horizon, history itself, the world was ruled to predators, not by man, the rustle of leaves, nature, the glint of eyes in the darkness, endlessly, the echo, rivers carved deep scars all into the meant land. Danger, and predator ancestors huddled close together in the cold of giant trees, clinging to one another. Here, survival was not a choice. Fear was constant. It was a battle. The night was endless. Among the countless creatures, but one day everything changed. Lived our earliest. It began with a storm. They were not yet human as we know today. Lightning struck a tree. Their bodies were strong, and from its broken covered with hair, leapt the most mysterious force they had ever seen. Their eyes, flames danced wildly. They lived more like animals than people, but smoke rose like a spirit was awakened. Narration. They fled in terror. Life for these ancient beings. This was a living creature. Every dawn was uncertain, untouchable. Every night, a descent into slowly turned into when curiosity. When the sun dipped below the horizon, back. The jungle became alive with drawn to the glow. They felt its roar of great cats echoed in the distance. They saw how predators kept their distance. Of strange beasts afraid of its light. For these fragile creatures, strange glow gave them safety, danger, something nothing else huddled together had ever given one another. For the first time, that morning would come. The night did not belong. Food was never guaranteed. It belonged to them. They scavenged fruit, fire was fragile, and insects. It could die sometimes quickly as it was born. They dared to steal the remains. They became its keepers by predators. They carried burning branches from one place to another. A venomous plant. They fed it with dry leaves, hidden predator, sticks, or another rival group waiting to strike. They did not know hunger was their greatest enemy. Only how to preserve it. Fear was their constant companion. It gave them something they had never known, but different. Control. Compared to the predators that ruled the land. Control. These ancestors were weak. Control over their future. They lacked claws to tear flesh. Fire. They lacked teeth sharp enough to bring down prey. No longer did they could not outrun the cold stars. Flames wrapped them. They were different. No longer did predators spark something unseen in the natural world. The glow pushed back curiosity. No longer were they forced to eat raw glimmer of thought that separated them from the animals around them, releasing when others saw only darkness they had never imagined. They wondered. The discovery of fire was they began to learn. This difference, it was the first step toward civilization. Would one day fire change more than just forever. Alone, they were vulnerable. They
but
sat around
together
it, they discovered
eyes
strength.
glowing with wonder.
In small groups,
Its crackling
they
sound
learned to
became
protect
music
one another.
and silence
When
of the
danger
jungle.
approached,
Its
the
light
weak
became
hid
a
behind
gathering
the strong.
place.
When
Where they
food
shared
was scarce,
they
where they
shared what
found
little they
comfort.
found.
A
Around the
mother's
fire,
cry for her child
something else
stirred
began
others
to
to
form.
defend. A
Something
leader's
deeper.
warning call
They
echoed
began
through
to
the
connect,
trees, and
to
the
share
group
not
followed.
only warmth,
This was
but
the birth
thoughts,
of something greater than
emotions,
survival,
and the first
the beginning
fragile
of threads of
community.
culture. Still,
For the first time,
the jungle
they were
was
not
merciless.
just surviving.
A
They were
rustle in the
living.
grass could mean
Generations
death.
passed,
A shadow
and
in the
knowledge
trees
of
could
fire
mean the
became
end.
sacred.
At night,
The keepers of
they
flame
clung
were
to the
on
branches,
for without them,
away from
the night
falling
would
leaves.
once again belong.
But no height was safe.
Children learned
Serpents
to feed it,
coiled up,
to protect it,
raptors
to never
leaped
let it
below.
die.
Even in the
glow
safety
of
of firelight,
terror
shadows
never
danced
danced
on paved walls.
They watched lightning
And
crack
perhaps
across
in
the
those
sky.
dancing forms,
They heard
thunder
imagination
shakes the earth.
born.
They
They
began
trembled,
to see
but they
stories
remembered.
flames. Each day of
Shapes of
struggle
animals
was etched into
their
spirits
minds.
and ancestors.
Each moment
Fire
fire
awakened
was a
not
lesson.
only their bodies,
slowly,
but
very
their minds.
slowly.
Then
The whispers
in
of
time
knowledge
came
began
the
to
greatest
form.
leap of all. One day,
They learned
in
not
a
just to
clearing
keep
after
fire
a storm,
alive, but
they
to
saw
create it
something new.
with stone
A
and
fallen
spark.
tree still smoked
With
from
wood
a
and
lightning
friction.
strike. From their
Around
own
it,
hands,
a strange
they
glow
summoned the
danced,
very force
bright,
of nature itself.
alive,
This was
untouchable.
more than survival.
The creatures did not
It was
understand
mastery,
but they felt
a
it.
turning point
Beat on
in the
their
history
faces.
of life.
Light
No
in the
creature
darkness
before had ever
Power
commanded
beyond
such
power.
anything they had known. No predator,
Some
no
fled
beast,
into
no rival.
Others stayed
This was the moment
watching,
they became
wondering.
more.
The
First
jungle
whispers
was
of a
still
discovery that would
dangerous.
change their
Predators
destinies
had
had
arrived.
arrived.
Hunger
But they were
still
not ready.
haunted
Their days.
Not yet,
But
now,
for now,
they
carried with
returned
them
to
a
the
weapon,
shadows of the
a
jungle.
shield,
A
still
light
struggling
against the dark,
still surviving. Fire
Yet
became
forever
their guardian,
changed by
their
what they had
teacher,
seen.
their hope,
Closing narration,
and in its
setting the
glow,
stage.
the
This
first
was the
whispers
dawn of
of
survival,
humanity
a
burned
world
bright.
where fear
This
ruled,
was the age
where
of the
hunger
masters of
consumed,
fire.
where death was always near.
But in the hearts of these fragile creatures, something was stirring. Something no beast possessed. A spark of thought. A whisper of courage. The beginning of what it meant to be human. Generations of fire, it was given them safety long before cities, but safety alone sank behind the history itself. Hunger still gnawed at their bones, not by man. Fruits, the rustle of leaves, and scraps, the power to force their growing cries. The echo,
Rivers
the whispered stars,
all
to the
meant
land.
but the
greatest prize
our
of ancestors
ancestors
close
huddled
together in
shadows,
cold,
towering by
trees.
clinging to one another.
Here
Survival was not a choice.
Fear was
Mighty
constant.
mammoth.
It was a battle.
The
These
night
creatures
was
and
among the countless
but
creatures
one day,
struggling to
everything
endure. Life
changed.
lived
Our earliest
It began
ancestors.
with a storm.
They were also
They were not
stronger,
yet
human,
human,
as we
faster.
know today.
Lightning
And
struck
far
a
more
tree. Their bodies
dangerous,
were
and
strong.
from
Any
its
broken
fragile
covered with
ancestor
hair.
could
Left
face
the most
movements.
mysterious
If they were to
force
survive,
had ever
they
seen.
had to
Their
become
eyes
something
always
new.
danced
They
wildly.
had to become
They lived
more
more
like
shimmered
animals
with
than
heat.
people,
It began
but
with
smoke
smoke
rose like a
sharp
spear
edges
edges
struck
struck
from
from
flint.
Narration
Cutting
deeper
they
than
fled
struggle.
in terror.
Life
Sharper
for
than
these
them.
ancient beings.
This was a
these
living
creatures.
creature. Every
Power
dawn
near
was
the
a
flesh
flesh
and
fall. Every night,
They
a
could shape
descent
would
into
slowly
fear.
turned into
When the sun
curiosity
their
dipped below the horizon. For the first
jungle
time,
became
their
alive,
hands
drawn
saved
on
them
the
weapons
no
they
other
felt the
roar
roar
of
of
great
great
cats
cats.
tools
They
not
saw
born
how
of nature.
predators
The
kept
howl
their
of
thoughts.
strange beasts.
This was the
sprayed
dawn of
flame.
invention. For
They
these
discovered
fragile
that
creatures,
strange
small
darkness
gave them
meant
safety.
danger.
Lizards,
Something
birds,
nothing else
huddled
ravaged.
together.
had ever given one desperate strike.
For the first time, often and night did not belong, but as their
never
mind sharpened,
it belonged to
their
them.
scavenged
Fruit,
fire was
they
brought,
began
and
to work
insects.
together.
It could die
Sometimes
as would
as
chase.
it was
They
born.
dared to
Another
steal
would
the
remain
They
left
became its
behind
keeper.
Others
By
would
predators.
drive
They
prey
carried
for
burning
every
branches
bite
from
carried
one single
place to
creature
another.
could anonymously
They
fed it with dry hidden
predator
sticks, or
this
other
was the
rival
birth
group.
strategy.
At first, they did not hunger for organized
greatest
only how to preserve.
Yet
Fear was their
thousand
every failure. It gave them something they had never known. Every wound, control compared to the predators that ruled the land. Control over not just for one. Control. They lacked claws. The tribe learned fire. Their lacked hunters were sharp enough to bring down prey.
No longer
They could not outrun the great mothers, children, flames wrapped them. They were different.
No
In
longer
their minds,
predators
sparked
something
tribe so
protecting
close
the
in the natural world.
Cared
Dared
for the
push
wounded
back curiosity.
and remember
No
awareness.
longer were they forced
A
to
glimmer of
thought.
thought
For the first time,
fire
survival
saw
was
animals
not
around
just
them,
individual.
releasing
When
taste
others
it was
and
all
nourishment.
only
Darkness.
They had
With
never
courage
wondered.
and cooperation.
The
Discovery of fire.
They dared
They
to
began to
challenge
learn.
survival.
Even the great
This
beasts
difference
of the
first
land.
step
Fragile as
towards
imagination. Would
A
one
small
day
fire was
change the
more than
fragile
just
creatures.
It
Alone,
became
they were
within
vulnerable.
spheres,
They
but
sat around
together,
it. They discovered
facing a
strength.
mammoth
with
whose
wonder.
roar
Small
shook
groups,
the earth.
crackling
They
sounds
learned
circle
circle,
music,
shout,
silence.
When
Of the
danger
jungle
approached,
approached,
its
the
light
weak
fire
became a
torches
gathering
strong.
flashed in the night.
Where
When
they
food
shared
was scarce,
using
the beasts,
where they
shared what
found
little
living
they
found.
into panic.
Around the
It was
fire,
not strength
something else
stirred
began
others
to
to
defend. It was
something
leader's
intelligence.
warning call.
They
It was
began to
unity.
decrease.
It was to
And
share
the
not
triumph
only
of
warmth.
mind,
This was
but
the
muscle.
birth of something
Greater
greater than
each
survival,
hunt,
and the first
they
beginning
fragile
of
threads
hunger.
of culture.
Still,
meat
for the
gave
first
them
time,
energy.
jungle
They were
was
not
submerged
tied to
surviving.
clothing.
A
They were
rustle in
living
the
grounds
shields
against
could
generations past.
Bones
A shadow
were
in
knowledge,
degrees, fire,
needles,
and weapons. At night, the keepers
Nothing
of the
was
flame
clung
were
to the
on
branches.
They
For
no
without
longer
the
waited
way
for
the night
challenge.
would once
They
again
no longer
but
waited
no
for
height
scraps.
was safe.
Children learned
serpents
serpents
coiled
up,
the
to
most
protect it.
unlikely
Raptors
predators
never
the
let it
world
die.
had ever seen.
Even in the
glow
safety
of
of
firelight,
firelight, transformation,
terror was
shadows,
never
something
far away.
deeper
Cave
stirred.
walls.
They watched light and
Hunting
required
perhaps
in
in
those
sky.
dancing
Planning
They heard
required
thunder
memory
shake
was
the earth.
born.
Memory required
They began to
communication,
see
but
stories
and
and
so each
Through
day of
gestures,
struggle
animals,
and
and
spirits, sparks
and
of language. Each
they
moment
began to
fire
share
awakens was a lesson.
Not only their
Not
bodies,
slowly,
fed
but
their
very
minds.
slowly. It
Then
had
the
begun
whispers
to
of
time
knowledge
came the
began
greatest
to
around the
form.
fire. One day
They learned
not
not
clearing
clearing
at
at
firelight,
signs
but
of
the
the
animals
saw something new.
Stone, their
fallen
hands still
painted
shaped
wood
wood,
and
for
walls.
strength. Stories
From
around
around
the hand,
heroes.
strange
They
glow
summoned the
trees and
very
force
bright,
of nature.
the
Hunt was
alive,
no longer
this was
more than survivors.
creatures
Became
did not
it was
understand
mastered.
it,
It
but
became
they felt
identity.
it.
Turning point.
It
Indeed on
became
its
the
rhythm
rhythm
of
of
their lives.
Light
No creature
every
before
had ever
powered
powered
beyond
on
anything they had
Fragile.
known. No predator,
Yet
no
no
fled
beast,
into
no rival.
Small, others
This
stayed.
was
Yet
the moment
they became
weak in
wondering.
body,
But
the
the
jungle
whispers
was
of
a
a discovery that was
closing
change their
predators
destiny
still
had arrived.
rise of the hunter.
But they were not ready.
The jungle
was
not
still
yet,
merciless.
but now,
For now, the
they
world
carried
still
one
returned to
the
the
weapon,
shadows, but
the
no
shield,
longer were they
a
still
light
struggling
prey,
against the dark,
hiding
still
in the
surviving.
shadows.
Fire
Yet
became
forever
fire in their
changed
hands.
by
Their
what they
teeth
had
seen.
weapons in
Their
their throat.
closing narration
And
in
unity
a
that
setting
glow.
stage. They rose
This
above
was the dawn of
humanity,
survival,
a world where
this was
the age of work, the master
supply,
age of
where
invention,
death was
the
always
age
near.
of the hunters. But in the hearts
with
of these
every
fragile
hunt,
creatures, every
something
victory
was
stirring, every story
something
carved
no
in
beast
stone and
possessed.
firelight, a spark they saw closer to
a
becoming
whisper of
human.
courage.
The beginning of what it meant to be human.